out as soon. I feel like he coming now. Ooh, he's down for me. He's about to kill
Hey besties, welcome back to my channel. Today's video will be a story time, but not just any story time. I'm finally doing the birth story with my son. I've been meaning to film this video for so long. I actually tried to record it once right when he was first born, but I was just rambling and I wanted it to be perfect, so I scrapped that video. So here I am trying again. I'm super excited to share my story with any pregnant women or first-time moms, or if you're somebody who just likes watching birth stories. Fun fact, I used to watch birth stories when I was a teenager on YouTube because I was always so curious. The story is so emotional for me. Just thinking about it, it was wild, beautiful, painful, and even funny at some moments. So I'm super excited to share it with you. So get comfy, get your tea, your snacks. You can play this in the background while you're cleaning. That's how I like to watch my YouTube videos. And let's get comfy while I share my story with you. Let's start from the beginning. When I was around 39 weeks pregnant, at that point I was so over with being pregnant. I was tired of the aches, the pains, waddling around everywhere, having to get up and pee 10 times a night. And I also had terrible insomnia in my last trimester of pregnancy. So I had my 39 weeks appointment with my doctor, and I was actually 39 weeks plus 1. I went with my fiance. I was telling him, I was like, I'm ready to get this baby out. I feel like he's going to be here soon. I was ready for the doctor to tell me, pack your bags, you can go to the hospital. So I was prepared for all of that. My fiance had took off of work this day, and I remember we took a cute little Instagram story picture titled 39 plus 1 at our appointment, and I was just ready for my doctor to tell me that I was going into labor soon. So the doctor came in, she checked me, and I actually got checked the week before at 38 weeks, and I got my dilation checked, and he told me that I was only about a half a centimeter dilated. So this was like a week later at 39 weeks, so I knew in my heart that I was progressing in labor and I was just going to be dilated much more. The doctor came in, she checked me, and she said that I was still about half a centimeter dilated. I could not believe it. I was so devastated because I was so ready to just give birth, and I told her, I was like, oh my god, I felt like I would be more progressed towards labor, and she could tell that I was a bit disappointed. So she offered to give me a membrane sweep, but I literally could not even get the membrane sweep because her just checking my dilation was so painful. And it's so weird because at my OB appointment, I don't see just one doctor. I just see all of the doctors, so I get a different one each week, so you don't know who's going to be on call when you deliver. So the other doctor that I had the week prior, when he checked my dilation, it didn't hurt. So when she checked it, it hurt so bad to the point where I didn't want to be touched. She wanted to do a membrane sweep. I said, no, thank you. And she was just like, well, you have one more week till 40, and then we can talk about induction if you're interested in that. Honestly, I wasn't interested in induction. I wanted to have as natural a labor as possible. I wanted to go into natural, spontaneous labor. So I was just disappointed that she didn't see signs that I was already progressing. But the story takes a turn. So I will say, if you're watching this, dilation checks are ways that you can check how far along you are in labor, but they're not law. Just you can dilate 5 centimeters in a few days or in a few hours, and that's honestly what happened to me. So after the doctor left the room, after checking me, I just bawled crying. Thank God my fiance was there with me, because I just bawled crying because I was just so tired of being pregnant. And prior to pregnancy, I didn't understand why women, when they get to the end of their pregnancy, they were so eager for it to be done. I was like, girl, you got a 1 week or 2 weeks left of being pregnant. Why are you such in a rush? When I would hear stories about moms, but when I was in that moment, I truly understand, because pregnancy feels like a marathon, and you can see the end in those last weeks, and you just want to go over the finish line, and you're just so eager to get your body back and meet your baby. So I bust out crying. My fiance was consoling me. He was like, oh, we can just get some lunch or something to feel better. And then my body was just hurting. And I was also starting to feel like intense back pain and neck pain, which I didn't even tell the doctor about. I didn't even think about telling her about. But I was getting really intense back and neck pain. We left the doctor's office. I dried my tears. I signed up for my next appointment a week later. So sad. Oh my god, I feel like everyone in the office knew how disappointed I was. I was like trying to hide my tears, but I don't know if I did a good job. Me and my fiance went and we got cheesesteaks to eat for lunch. We got home. My fiance just chilled out because he was expecting me to go into labor soon as well. But with the news from the doctor and knowing I could have a whole nother week left, he just vibed out. He was in the living room watching his shows or whatever. I was in the bathroom eating half of my hoagie, just trying to figure out what I was going to do and how I could help myself go into natural labor. I was looking up articles. I had already started drinking raspberry tea just the week before. My doctor told me not to drink it too soon because she didn't want me to go into labor super early. But now at 39 weeks, I was just ready for him to come. So I drank so much raspberry leaf tea. I ate so many dates in that one day. And while I'm doing all this stuff, I'm having this severe creeping back and upper neck pain. And it's so funny because my cousin went into labor and she had back labor. And I was expecting to start laboring in my lower back, but for some reason it was like shooting up my neck. I knew that I was feeling differently, but I just chalked it up to being dramatic, and I didn't know that I was actually in the early stages of labor. So I was eating my dates. I made these date Snicker recipe. If you want it, I can make a video on it for you guys so you can try it. But it was just chocolates, peanut butter, dates. It was so good. I love dates even when I'm not pregnant. So I was eating a bunch of those dates. I was just chugging raspberry leaf tea and I was just chilling, laying in bed. I was having that neck pain and I was literally looking up chiropractors and masseuses to give me a pregnancy massage. I ended up booking a pregnancy massage for the next day with Hand and Stone because I needed it so bad because the pain was so sharp. I also had a heating pad on the back of my neck to help me with the pain, and that helped so much. So for dinner, we was just over it. We didn't cook that whole day. So he ended up getting Chipotle for dinner and got me a bowl. I wasn't even that hungry, but I had a little bit of my Chipotle bowl. And my fiance around 10 o'clock came and laid down in bed. And I was just laying down with the heating pad on my neck in so much pain. And I was DMing my cousin who already had a daughter. And I was telling her, I'm done with this. I'm ready to go into labor. I'm so over it. I was asking her for advice. I was planning on doing yoga the next day after my massage. And literally, after I wrote her a message, I got this sharp pain, which I now know is a contraction, in my lower stomach that was so, so sharp. And I jumped up and then I literally walked to my bathroom and fluid just exited my downstairs area. As you can imagine, just all this fluid came out in the bathroom floor. At that time in my apartment, we had our bathroom in the master bedroom. So all this fluid just came out and I was like, oh my God. And my fiance was like half asleep. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. I called my mom and I always plan to labor as much as possible at home. So at this point, I was starting to get contractions, but we weren't measuring them. But they were so sharp. I called my doctor to let her know the fluid had came out, and she had some type of answering machine where she calls you back. So I told her what my symptoms were, and let me tell you, by the time she called me back, I was already in the car with my fiance to the emergency room because I progressed that fast. So I called my doctor. I talked to, I guess, the people, the answering service or the people at the desk, and told them my symptoms, and they said the doctor was going to call me back. I called my mom. I told her everything was going on. She started getting herself together. She was like, Essence, it sounds like you're in labor. My sister started to get herself together. And then as I was laying there, I had an extremely sharp contraction that was so bad. I was like, oh no, I need to go to the emergency room. During that time, I was having contractions on and off, but I wasn't timing it. My fiance asked me, did he want me to time it? I was like, no, it's fine. I'm gonna just labor at home. But then out of nowhere, I got such a sharp contraction to the point where I was like, yeah, we need to go to the hospital. So I already had my pregnancy hospital bags packed. If you're a pregnant mom, I say have that hospital bag packed by 35 weeks the latest, because you never know when you can go into labor. So thank God I had my pregnancy bag packed. I got that all together, and I was just having such sharp contractions. I remember going out to the car and I remember trying to do things in between my contractions. So I was like getting my bags together, then I stopped and waited and went through a contraction on the couch. Then I had a little break, so I tried to hurry up and run to the car. And when I was in the car, I had another super strong contraction, and I was just contracting while we were in the car on the way to the hospital. And I was doing the birthing techniques that I knew at the time, which were to envision your contractions like a mountain and follow your contractions like going up like a mountain, like a peak, and then feeling release and letting your body go and let your body do what it has to do. So I was doing that. We finally got to the hospital. Thank God I had a handicap spot because we were able to park in front, and my fiance didn't have to worry about parking. He could come in with me. And oh my gosh, my fiance was there with me when I was signing in. By the time I got to the hospital, it was like 12 o'clock at night. So we signed in. I had already registered with my hospital to give birth, and they were asking me questions, and I was so focused on the pain that if you were there, you would think how blunt my responses were. It was just funny. I don't even know how to explain it because I was just so blunt because I was in so much pain. I remember when we were waiting after we signed in, I was just in the hospital chair in a ball. And I remember someone else in the waiting room, like another man, he was just looking at me. I was like in a ball. I couldn't even sit down straight because I was in so much pain. But when they were asking me questions, they said what number pregnancy this is. And I was like, there's only one baby in there. I was just so blunt because I was in so much pain. It was hilarious. So after I signed in and I was just in the chair dying, they called me back and my fiance was like, do I come with you? I was like, yes, come with me. Like, I was just so blunt because I was in so much pain. And the nurse was like, oh no, he doesn't come yet. I was like, oh God, because I need him here with me to calm me down during the pain. She took me back. They asked all the traditional questions they have to ask you by yourself. They were like, am I safe at home? Was there ever a time in the last 2 weeks that you didn't have enough food at home and stuff? All these random questions. And they were asking me about my medical history. I was giving them the answers. And then she left out and she was calling my fiance back in. And during that time, I had to go to the bathroom. And I remember having the worst contraction when I was on the toilet. I was like, is this baby about to come out in the toilet? And then finally, I came back and sat down. My fiance was in the room. A doctor came into the room to check my dilation. And guys, I was 5 centimeters dilated. Between the time of my doctor's appointment and me going home, I had dilated 5 centimeters and I didn't even know it. That's why I say in the morning I was in active early stages of labor and I did not know it. And I felt the physical signals, but just because I was only half a centimeter dilated, I wasn't expecting to go into labor for another week. So I say that to say labor, it can be super spontaneous and you can't always predict it based on dilation. So she checked me. I was 5 centimeters and I was in so much pain. I remember before she was checking me, she could see on the monitor I was contracting and she was like, let's just wait until this contraction goes by and then I'll check you. So she checked me. I was in labor. She was like, all right, you're going to go to labor and delivery. And I was super excited for that because I know once you're in labor and delivery, you don't leave without your baby. So I was like, this is the moment. I'm meeting my son. Oh my gosh. I was so excited, but also I was in so much pain. And the more that I was in labor, the less I was in touch with the people around me. I don't see a lot of moms talk about this, but when you're in labor and you aren't medicated, you're not as present because you're in so much pain. You're literally on a different plane. It's just you thinking about the pain and your baby. So I was still using the technique of thinking about my contractions as a mountain, but I also didn't prepare myself for being in that much pain and not being able to find a way to relax my body. So they always say just relax your body, let the contractions run through you. But I was trying to relax my body and I was trying to adjust myself in the bed and just find a place where I can be comfortable and I can just let the contractions go through me. But there was no place where I felt comfortable. And I always wanted to be able to move during labor and I didn't want to be tied to a hospital bed. But the moving didn't help. The pain, the moving did not help. And I will give you the raw and the real. There's people who will sugarcoat things for you and tell you if something is not. Yes, you can get through it. Your body was meant to get through it, but it is tough. And not being on medication during labor, you're not going to be able to be as present because you'll just be focused on yourself and your baby and the pain. And you're just in a different plane. It's like a different field that you've never been in, a different headspace. So I was going through that. She said it was time to go to labor and delivery. Even though I was in pain, I was super excited. And then out of nowhere, I started to get nauseous. And I remember my friend Aisha, who has a daughter already, she told me that she threw up when she got to the hospital. I'm like, oh my God, I can't imagine being in so much contraction pain and being nauseous on top of that. But that wave of nausea came, and out of nowhere, I just told my fiance was sitting there, and I just wasn't even focused on him. And I just turned to him and I just said, I feel nauseous. And then I just sat up and I just started throwing up. And I was just so embarrassed because I could see the little food particles from what I ate that day, the cheesesteak, and I could see the chipotle veggies in it. Not to get nasty, but it was insane. So then he was like so surprised that I did that. He was just like, oh, nurse, she just threw up. The nurse came in. She was very nice. Thank God. I was praying for a good labor team and nurses throughout my whole pregnancy. And she was like, oh, this is normal. Nausea's normal. She helped me take off my clothes that I threw up and put on a fresh hospital gown. And at that point, I was in so much pain. I was like, please, can I have a comb? Funny enough, I knew about comb and using a comb in your hand to give birth. But now that I'm pregnant again, I'm pregnant with my second pregnancy. I made the announcement and I filmed a video finding out I was pregnant. I'll link it down below. So I'm currently in my second pregnancy right now. But my first pregnancy, I didn't know there was combs designated for giving birth. So she just gave me a random comb and I put it in my hand and I was using that to help manage my pain because I was having such intense contractions. Finally, she got me a wheelchair and we were wheeling up to labor and delivery. And even though I was in so much pain, I was so excited because I was finally going in labor and about to meet my son. Once we were wheeling to the elevators, my mom and my sister were actually in the waiting room, so I met them there. Timing aligned perfectly, so they were able to go up in the elevator with me to the delivery room. I remember being in the elevator, and I don't even like elevators, but I just didn't care about anything around me because all I could focus on was the pain of the contractions. We got to the room. My mom was trying to play music. She was like, what do you want to listen to? I was like, I don't care. I was just in my own zone. I had that Brofring comb and I was squeezing it so hard. My mom was like, oh my God, be careful. It was just a regular comb I had. She took it from me and she wrapped it around in paper towels and she gave it back to me because she was worried that my hand was going to start bleeding because of how much pain I was in. And I did that for around an hour until I tapped out and I was like, I need the epidural. Please. I was like, give me the epidural. Give me Miss Dural. I'm ready for her. I'm done with this pain because I wasn't present. I wasn't able to be there with my fiance. I had a birth plan and I had these affirmations, and I literally couldn't sit there and read the affirmations because I was in so much pain. When you're in that pain, I keep on saying it, you're really in a different dimension and you're just alone. And I just couldn't take it. There was no reason for me to deal with this anymore. I was like, pull up the anesthesia team. I'm ready for Miss Dural. And the only bad thing about that is when you get an epidural, you have to get a bag of an IV first. So I had to get the IV. I didn't even care about getting the IV. I usually don't like needles, but the contraction pain is so bad that you don't even care about getting the IV. So I got the IV and I had to wait for another 45 minutes for my bag to empty out before anesthesia could come and give me the epidural. Finally, the anesthesia team came. I think it was just 2 people, and they were giving me the epidural. They were putting me to the edge of the bed and telling me I had to sit straight so I couldn't move so they can give me the epidural needle. And I was just so ready for it because I was in so much pain. The pain of the epidural needle does not equate to the pain of the contractions. The contraction pain is so much worse. So I was just sitting there and the anesthesia team was just trying to talk to me, and they were asking me about the name for my son, and I told them the name that I was choosing for my son and why, and that my fiance was Korean and it ties him to his heritage, and the anesthesiologist was also Korean, so they were talking about that, and they were just trying to talk to me to distract me and keep me calm. They had my fiance right in front of me to help me stay straight, and I just stayed straight, and I got the epidural. And after that, it took about 10 to 20 minutes for it to start kicking in, and thank God it kicked in. It calmed me so much. Like, it made my labor experience so different. I feel like active labor with the epidural, well, labor is different for everyone. Some people don't need the epidural, but my labor experience without the epidural and with the epidural was so much different because I was able to calm down with the epidural. And once it started to kick in, I was able to talk to my mom, my sister, my fiance. I was able to read my affirmations, and I could still feel that I was in labor, but I wasn't in the intense, sharp pain anymore. And I was so exhausted. You have to think, the last trimester of my pregnancy, I had insomnia so much. I couldn't sleep because I was in so much pain. That was the first release that I've had in months. So I had the best epidural nap ever. And mind you, it was already 12 o'clock at night. Everybody was exhausted, and I just felt like after I got the epidural, everybody else was able to calm down. Right before I fell asleep on my epidural nap, my sister and my fiance both fell asleep too. And I was just able to relax and get literally the best nap I've ever had after I got that epidural. After I woke up from my epidural nap, it was finally super early morning. They had a shift change. A new nurse came in who was also nice as well. And then my doctor came in, the one that I called and told that I was in labor. She came in and she said that another doctor was coming in. The doctor who I saw in the morning who did my dilation check that was so painful. So honestly, I just wanted to keep the doctor that I had, and I was like, no, can you please just stay with me? She's like, no, I have to go home. You'll be in good hands with the new doctor. So during that time, there was also a lot of other women giving birth at the same time. I think they said 15 or 17 other women in labor that night. So honestly, they left me alone, and I was just in there with my family. We were listening to music. We were FaceTiming my cousin who I was just chatting with hours earlier, telling her I was ready to give birth. And it was so funny to tell her that I was actually in labor. I was calling my friends. My dad, he came in. He gave me a water cooler or ice cooler because I wanted to take my placenta with me. And I had the epidural but I was still in labor. Like, when you're in labor, you feel it no matter what. I remember I was talking to the anesthesiologist and I was telling him, because I was so scared about the ring of fire they tell you about when you're pushing out your baby and their head goes through and it's really intense pain. And although after epidural I wasn't in pain anymore, I just felt pressure. But I was telling him, I was like, am I not going to feel the ring of fire? And he was honest with me. He's like, listen, you're delivering a baby. There's no way that you're not going to feel any type of pain. But this epidural is supposed to help you through the pain. So that helped me manage my expectations. So I was still feeling myself progress in labor. I was feeling his head going down. And I was just in the room alone with my family, but to myself, I was like, I feel him down there. He's coming. But the doctors were in other rooms with other women. I feel like if less women was there, I would have progressed sooner. Then out of nowhere, it was so scary. A bunch of nurses came in and they had to move me, and they didn't even tell me what was happening, but they had to move me because I guess my son's heart rate went down and they were concerned about it. So a whole bunch of nurses came, they moved me on the ball, put me to the side, and luckily his heart rate went back up, but that was super scary. Then before the shift came, the doctor came in and told me that they wanted me to get some Pitocin to progress my labor, because even though I felt myself laboring and him moving down, they wanted it to happen a little quicker because I was already there for a few hours when I was napping. I was telling her, I was like, I'm not sure about that. I just want a natural labor and naturally progress. And the doctor was telling me that the Pitocin is actually oxytocin, which is the natural hormone that my body produces in labor anyway. So I was about to say no. Then my mom was like, Essence, just listen to the doctors. I think you should take it. So I got a little bit of that, and then I really started progressing. And then after a while, the doctor came in before her shift changed again, and she checked me, and I was like 10 centimeters. So she wanted to break my water, which was confusing to me because I had fluid come out of me right when I first noticed that I was laboring. So I was like, didn't my water break before? But I guess it didn't fully break. I think what they called it was an amniotic fluid rupture. So when I was at home and I noticed my labor start, I guess that was the amniotic fluid rupture. So that was some fluid coming out of me as I began to dilate. So finally, when I was 10 centimeters, she went to break my water. And funny enough, the whole time when I was in labor, I felt the fluid coming out of me that whole time. So when she went to go break my labor, she went to break it and she was just like, like she's like, oh, not much is coming out. Insane. I know that's not textbook at all, but she didn't see a lot of fluid coming out when she broke my water. She was like, oh, okay. Then she finally did leave and the new doctor came in. And I was telling the new doctor, she came in, she was like, she's performing a C-section on a mom and twins and something. And she was like, I'll be right back. I don't know if it's like this for everyone, but I felt like I was ready to push. I was like ready to go at that point. I'm 9 centimeters. My water is broken. And we're about to start pushing soon. So she came back and it was time to push. And this is where things just got so crazy. All right, so it was officially time to push. Again, I had my fiance there, my sister there, and my mom. So my fiance was like behind my back helping me to push. I had my sister on one leg to help me and my mom on the other leg, and the doctors taught them how they can help me to push. They also taught me how I can have more like efficient pushing and things like that. So they ran through all of that, and then it was time to push. And I was just pushing, and as soon as I started pushing, they started to see his hair like coming out, like he was right there. I just had to push to get him out. So I'm starting to push and I'm giving all my might to push him out and try to do it productively in the right way to have him slide out. And out of nowhere, my mom is like, wait, I'm feeling a little sick. So my mom says she started feeling sick and she's getting dizzy. So we had to stop in the middle of my pushing for the nurses to tend to my mom, sit her down, have her elevate her feet, and get her some juice. And I was just like, I was like, what is going on right now? They had to give her some apple juice. They were telling her it's okay. They've seen big linebacker dudes pass out during the labor process since it's so intense. And she was explaining that when I was pushing and she was watching me, she felt like she was pushing and she was straining because she was so in tune with what I was doing. So we had to stop. And I was just like, I was just so shocked. And she had to sit down. And for the rest of my pushing, she was just sitting down in a chair with her juice and cheering me along while I was just pushing with my fiance and my sister. And shout out to my fiance and my sister, but shout out really to my sister because, oh my God, we're 7 years apart. She's younger. She's never dealt with anything pertaining to birth, and she took that so strong. I felt so confident because of how confident she looked. And I'll never forget, she was telling me, Essence, you're doing such a good job. Essence, I see the hair coming out. You're doing so good. Shout out to my sister. I feel like everything went so smoothly because I had her there with me, encouraging me and supporting me, helping me lift up my leg. Like, just her demeanor, and it's along with my sister personality too. She's very unfazed. Her demeanor was like I was going to be okay and it was normal. My fiance's demeanor was the same way too. He was just like locked in and he was ready. But with my mom, I'm not gonna lie, she made me feel a little bit scared because my mom's emotions, I can read them like a book. So when I was looking at her, I could tell she was anxious and that was scaring me. But my sister, she was acting like I had it in the bag. This wasn't my first time and I got it. And she really gave me the confidence in myself to know that I can like push out this baby. So while I was pushing and I was pushing out so hard, and during my pushing process, my son would like come out a little bit and then he would go back in. Like I would push, he would come out a little bit and then he would go back in. So after a while with pushing, I got exhausted and I just told myself, I was like, Essence, he's coming out in the next 2 pushes. So I pushed so hard and he was coming out, and then I just kept on pushing, and finally he came out, and he came out crying, and I wanted him to come out crying so bad because I heard about babies coming out and they're not crying and they have to do stuff to make the baby cry, but he came out loud and I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus. Thank you. He came out. They was getting fluid out of his mouth and they put him on me and he was crying so loud, but I just felt so much at peace. Like even though he was crying, I felt so much at peace because my baby was finally there, and I feel like I was waiting and preparing my whole pregnancy to comfort him when he came out. So he was screaming and I was just comforting him and holding him and make him feel better, and finally he calmed down and I started breastfeeding with him in that moment. And breastfeeding when he first comes out, the golden hour, is so easy. To be honest, there ain't nothing easy about breastfeeding after that moment, but during that golden hour, please take advantage of how easy breastfeeding is, because later on it's going to hurt. And well, I don't want to say that. Later on it hurt for me and I had some challenges, but breastfeeding was never as easy as it was during that golden hour. I was breastfeeding. I was so relaxed and relieved because it felt like the 9 months of pressure that I went through during my pregnancy with my son was finally over. And I just felt so much at peace and happy. I was like, it's done. I'll never forget when my dad came in to give me the cooler so I can put my placenta in. He saw me and that was the last time he was going to come in before I gave birth, and he was just like, I'll see you on the other side. So when I was breastfeeding my baby, I'll never forget feeling like this is what the other side is. I made it through. Like so many times during that process, especially before the epidural, that I thought like I couldn't do it, but I was just so proud of myself that I proved that I could do it, and it was over and I was on the other side, and it was time for me to start my journey with my son, Earthside, and I just was so thankful. The best part about giving birth is that moment right after your baby comes. I'm telling you, if you're pregnant right now and you're going through it, just know that after you give birth, you're going to feel the most euphoria that you've ever felt. Like, there is an end to the pain and the struggles of pregnancy. Of course, later on, you're going to have to deal with postpartum, and you're going to be in pain whether you had a C-section or a vaginal birth. You'll have postpartum pain. If you're like me, I had a second degree tear, so you're going to have to deal with that. But that's later along the line. Like, that first, I'll say 12 to 24 hours after you give birth, it's the most peace and relief you'll ever feel in your life. All in all, I was in labor for 12 hours. My son came at around 12:08 noon. He was introduced to the world, and I was just so happy. I remember right before I started pushing, the nurse was asking me because she saw the cooler, and I told her that I was going to save my placenta, and I was just so locked in with birth. Like, even though I had the epidural, I still felt pressure and things like that. So she was like, "What are you going to do with your placenta?" And I was just like, "Eat it." And my sister started cracking up because I was just so locked in that I just didn't think about how that sound. The lady was like, "Oh, like eat it? You mean like encapsulate it and like take the pills?" And I was like, "Yes, like that's what I meant." And my sister was just cracking up because I said eat it like I was just gonna grill it up and eat my placenta, which was ridiculous. I also want to say, after I delivered my baby, it was finally time for me to go to the mother baby room with my son. So they transferred us to another room. I got to hold him while I was in my wheelchair, and they wheeled me outside of the room. And everybody was like, "Congratulations." The nurses was like, "Congratulations." And I was like, "Thank you." And I just felt so happy and so proud of myself. But yes, now we're here. He's growing. He's thriving. He's everything that I could imagine and more. He's only one, but he has such a funny personality. And now I'm pregnant again, about to join the 2 under 2 community. 2 babies within 2 years is insane. Motherhood is truly wild, but I love seeing my son grow, and I feel like he's turning me into someone that I'm so proud of. No matter how challenging the experience was, I wouldn't trade it for anything. If you're watching this because you're pregnant or you're just curious, I hope this story gave you comfort, maybe even a few laughs and reassurance that you can get through labor and delivery. Even when it gets messy and weird and nothing goes as planned, it's still so beautiful and magical. But thank you for listening to me and my son's story. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe down below and click the notification bell so you can be notified every time I upload. I will have so much more mom content coming out soon, especially that I'm pregnant with my second baby. And yes, thank you so much for watching. Bye.